There is a photograph somewhere of your family. Everyone is smiling, and when you look at it, you feel something that does not match the smiles. You remember that day differently. You remember being the problem. Maybe you were the one who started it, the one who was too sensitive, too dramatic, too difficult to love the easy way. Somewhere along the line, your family found a place to put everything that went wrong, and that place was you. But the real answer is far stranger than the story you were handed. You were not the broken one. You were the container. And the role you were given is older than your family, older than your language, older than almost anything your mind can hold. Start with the word itself. A scapegoat was not a metaphor once. It was an animal. In an ancient ritual, a community would gather around a single goat, lay their collective wrongdoing onto its back, and drive it out into the wilderness to carry those sins away. The village did not hate the goat. The village needed it. Without something to load the weight onto, the weight had nowhere to go. A thinker named René Girard spent his life studying this pattern, and what he found should unsettle you. When a group is under pressure, when tension builds and no one can name the real cause, the group unconsciously converges on a single figure and blames everything on them. The blame does not need to be true, it only needs to be shared. And once the group agrees on who is at fault, the tension drops. The room feels cleaner. Peace returns. Not because the problem was solved, but because it was successfully relocated. Now bring that home. Your family was a small society under pressure. It had stresses it could not face, feelings no one was allowed to say out loud, a story about itself that had to stay intact. And in that pressure, a role opened up. Someone had to carry what the family could not carry itself. You were standing closest when the role came looking. This is where a psychiatrist named Murray Bowen becomes essential. Bowen studied whole families instead of single patients, and he noticed something that changes how you see your own childhood. In a family under chronic anxiety, that anxiety does not just float in the air, it flows. It travels along the lines of the family until it settles onto one member, usually a child, and that child begins to absorb the family's unspoken stress. Bowen called this the family projection process. The child does not create the tension. The child becomes the place the tension lives. And here the story turns, because you would assume the family picks the weakest child. Often it is the opposite. The scapegoat is frequently the most perceptive one in the house, the one who felt the wrongness in the room before anyone spoke, the one who could sense the gap between what was being said and what was actually happening. That sensitivity was not a flaw. It was a kind of radar, but radar is dangerous to a family that has agreed not to look, because the child who feels the truth is also the child most likely to say it. Think about what that means. You may have been blamed not despite your clarity, but because of it. You were the one who noticed. You were the one who asked the question no one wanted asked. And a family that cannot face its own reflection does not thank the mirror, it turns the mirror around. But how does a feeling actually move from a parent into a child? This is not just poetry, there is a mechanism. The psychoanalyst Melanie Klein described a process she called projective identification, and once you understand it, you cannot unsee it. A person carries a part of themselves they cannot bear to feel. A failure, a shame, a rage they were taught was unacceptable. Rather than feel it, they split it off, and they place it into someone near them. And the astonishing part is that the other person begins to feel it, begins to act it out, begins to become the very thing that was projected onto them. So the parent who cannot face their own sense of failure locates that failure in you. They see it in you. They react to it in you. And you, small and forming and desperate to make sense of the faces around you, receive the message and start to believe it. You are the difficult one. You are the reason things go wrong. You take the shape you were handed, because a child has no way to refuse a role assigned by the people who are their entire world. And here is the part that changes everything you thought you knew. The role was never really about you. It is a position the family system needs filled, the way a body needs a place to store what it cannot digest. You can prove this to yourself with one quiet, devastating observation. Watch what happens when the scapegoat leaves, when they heal or move away or simply go silent and stop absorbing the blame. The family does not suddenly become peaceful. The tension it never resolved comes flooding back with nowhere to land. And very often, without anyone deciding to, the family reaches for someone new. A younger sibling, an in-law, the next available back. The role does not retire. It gets refilled. If you have carried this far into it with me, you already know this weight from the inside, and that is exactly the person I built this channel for. Right now, there are 36 of us learning to set down things that were never ours to hold, and before the next video, the one already waiting, I want us to reach 50. Subscribe, set one thing down, and pick the thread back up with me. Because there is a reason this role lives in the body long before you ever have words for it, and that is where we go next. Long before you understood any of this, your nervous system understood it perfectly. A child in the scapegoat position learns one lesson faster than almost any other. Watch the faces. Read the room before you enter it. Notice the exact moment a parent's mood begins to turn, so you can brace or disappear or make yourself useful before the blame arrives. Picture the dinner table you grew up at. Everyone else is eating. You are doing something else entirely. You are scanning. You are tracking the tone of a voice, the set of a jaw, the silence that means something is about to happen. You learned to feel the weather in a room the way other people feel rain coming. That is not paranoia. That is training. The psychologist John Bowlby helped the world understand that a child will do almost anything to stay connected to a caregiver, even a caregiver who hurts them, because for a small human, connection is survival. So you did not walk away. You adapted. You became an expert reader of danger in the very people who were supposed to be safe, and you were probably not the only child in that house. This is where the pattern reveals its cruelest symmetry. Very often, the same parents who cast one child as the scapegoat cast another as the golden child. One child can do no right, the other can do no wrong, and it can feel from the inside like proof that something is uniquely wrong with you. Look how easy your sibling was to love. But the two roles are not separate accidents. They are two halves of the same machine. The golden child carries the family's hope. You carried the family's shame. Neither of you was actually seen. You were both just useful. The family therapist, Salvador Minuchin, spent his career watching how families organize themselves around a single struggling member, and he saw it again and again. The child who acts out, who gets labeled, who gets sent away to be fixed, is very often expressing a tension that belongs to the whole family. In family therapy, there is even a name for this position: the identified patient. The one everybody agrees is the problem. The one whose symptoms let everyone else avoid looking at the system those symptoms are coming from. If you were the identified patient in your family, you were not the illness. You were the one carrying the fever for everyone else. A researcher named Vimala Pillari studied this directly in her work on scapegoating in families, and she found that the role is rarely invented fresh in a single generation. It is inherited. A parent who was scapegoated as a child often, without any conscious cruelty, passes the pattern down. The weight they were made to carry did not disappear when they grew up. It waited. And when they had a family of their own, it found a new back to sit on. This is why the role can feel so much older than you are. In a sense, it is. You may be carrying something that was handed down long before you were born. Now watch what all of this training does to your adult life, because it does not stay in childhood. It comes with you. It becomes the quiet machinery running underneath everything. It is why you apologize before you have done anything wrong. It is why another person's bad mood can feel like an accusation aimed straight at you. It is why, in a room full of people, You are the one silently checking whether everyone is okay, ready to absorb the tension the second it appears. You were trained for this. You are still doing the job, long after you left the house where the job was assigned. And you may keep walking into rooms that hand you the role again. A workplace where you somehow become the one who gets blamed when things go wrong. A friendship where you are always the one who is too much. A relationship where you end up cast once again as the difficult one. It does not feel like a choice. It feels like recognition. There is a terrible comfort in a familiar role, even a painful one, because at least you know how to play it. The unfamiliar thing, the thing that can feel almost impossible, is being somewhere you are not the problem, somewhere the alarm can finally stay quiet. Then there is the guilt, the strangest symptom of all. When the scapegoat finally begins to heal, to set the weight down, to step back from the drama, they often do not feel free. They feel guilty, as if leaving the role were a betrayal, as if the family might collapse without someone to carry its weight, and that someone was always supposed to be you. This is the last, cruelest grip of the role. It convinces you that your suffering was holding everyone together, so that even your recovery feels like abandonment. And when you do step back, the family may confirm your worst fear out loud. They may call you the problem all over again, this time for leaving. Because a system that needs a scapegoat experiences your healing as the crime. But here is what the whole pattern quietly reveals, once you can see it from the outside. If the role was assigned, then the role can be declined. You were not born the sickness in your family. You were the smoke detector. You went off because there was smoke. The problem was never the alarm that noticed the fire. The problem was the fire no one else would admit was burning. And an alarm is allowed to stop screaming once it is finally safe. Setting the weight down does not mean proving your innocence to the people who needed you guilty. Some of them will never agree because they still need the role filled, and they would rather it stay yours. It means something quieter and more permanent. It means understanding all the way down that the story was never about who you are. It was about what the system needed to survive, and a system's need is not a verdict on your soul. So look at that photograph again, the one where everyone is smiling and you feel something that does not fit. Look at the child you were, standing there, already carrying a weight that no one in that frame would name. You were not the problem in the picture. You were the one holding what the picture could not hold. And after all this time, after carrying it for people who may never even notice it is gone, you are finally allowed to open your hands. Set it down. It was never yours. If this one reached something in you, leave a like and subscribe so we do not lose each other on the way out of the wilderness. There is always one more thing to set down, and I would rather we do it together.